congratulations on your ASC award nomination and just on
Yeah,
the
no,
success of
that's
the
great.
film. Yeah, I
Yeah, no,
mean,
that's awesome.
the film is so impressive and your work on it is so outstanding. So I'm really excited to get to speak to you about that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I mentioned, we have so much coverage on Top Gun already, and I really want to come at this from a different angle and really talk to you about your personal experience with this. So yeah, I mean, I'll start with just, what was it like to come on to this project, and what excited you about shooting this in the first place?
Well, it's a little bit of a, I used to be a gaffer for Tony Scott, so we can start off with that, and that's so there's a little bit of an emotional tone for me for doing this movie as well. I remember when Tony was about to go to do the second one, and I mean, for me, it was just a really emotional, you know, kind of journey for me for taking on this movie. And to, I called Jeffrey Kimball about, like what were his challenges about the job, and just from talking about previous DPs that worked on, a DP that worked on the job. So for me, it was really, I mean, I think kind of a cool project to do, especially with Joe, and both and I we're really on board about trying to do this in camera and try to give like a real in-camera experience for the audience on this one. We really tried to get cameras in the jets. We worked really hard on doing that. We spent, a year trying to figure out how to get them in. Try to get on the job early as I can. So I talked to the Navy about where we could put them, and it just a lot of super, early on pre-planning. Shooting in another jet to see what it's like, and then shooting that, and then showing them the plans of what we did, and say we'd like to do this with Top Gun. So, I mean, for me, that was kind of the excitement part of this job. And, it's always exciting. We always have a career where you work with different people, and working with the Navy, I think, is kind of interesting. It's, outside of my wheelhouse, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's got to be so many things about this film that were unlike previous experiences, simply because the realm of what was possible was being kind of pushed in so many ways, with putting the cameras on the jets and like pushing, how many G's you could pull and all of that. So, I mean, it's all really, really exciting on a more, like personal grounded story level. I would love to know like what excited you about the film, and what maybe stands out to you as something that you're really proud of that you shot.
I mean, I'm proud about the obvious thing about getting all the cameras, but I'm also proud of, all the work we did on the carrier. I think all that's really beautiful. I'm really proud of the way our communication with the Navy, the aerial coordination of how Kevin LaRosa worked with the Navy to get the shots we were able to get, shots, beyond what the Navy normally does. They don't do training at, sub 100 feet. All their training is done at 5,000 feet and which is not as exciting, for a movie. We really wanted to get them low as possible. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the pilots we had were so interested in this project, mainly because they were all fans of the first Top Gun. A lot of them were there because of the first Top Gun. So I feel like, that was exciting. And, they were all like trying to help out and figuring out what we can do. And so I'm kind of proud of that collaboration. There's a lot of scenes I'm really proud of. I mean, I love some of the, when Tom's on the beach with Jennifer, I feel like that has a really soul-y moment. I feel that feels connected. I love some of the, obviously the jet stuff is all exciting. There's some dark stuff that I'm really proud of how that looks, because it all had to take place at this kind of evening light. And, I had an idea that I thought would be really interesting when the jet takes off. I just thought when the sun, so that it takes place, he gets to the place, sun's going down in late light, and he comes into the hangar, and then when he takes off, it's dusk. But I thought it was an interesting idea for the plane, and when it kind of goes up, into the sky, he actually reconnects with the sun. And there's a scene when he's turning around and he kind of reconnects the sun, which is the talk to me goose kind of moment. And I thought that kind of really worked and resonated really well.
Right. I mean, with
Um,
something with that, you have such a small window of time to shoot. So did
correct.
you, yeah,
So
did
that
you
was
get
all
that
done.
all in
That was
one
all done at
day?
that. We did this. We took a little time to keep on shooting sections of that while we do some daytime scenes around, and then we would always kind of revisit it. So we're at the location long enough where we can kind of keep that window for a couple days to shoot that in the right light. And then obviously, Dark Star, is a fictional plane, and so there's some work, but I do like the idea that when he's in the cockpit, I made this little sunlight kind of come around and then move around. And I just think the tone of that feels, I don't know, I like the tone of that. There's different things in the movie that I like.
Right.
I like this. It was funny because I remember I used to work with Tony Scott, and he used to be famous for these big sunset grads. And I do remember I was playing around with some color, and I remember just kind of sticking a grad out there just for fun, like, hey, let's see what it looks like, one of these, big, massive grads. And I said, let's just go too far with it. And we went too far, and it was like, well, that's kind of good, right? It feels like Top Gun, in the way that kind of burnt sky. So we
Yeah,
did.
I mean, was there a sense of, how do you balance paying homage to the original aesthetic while also modernizing it in a way?
Yeah, well, it is modern. I mean, we're actually, we're in the aircraft, because the original was done more, projection, because that's, you can't I mean, that's the thing with technology right now. Now we're able to put, the little Rialtos in the plane, which they couldn't have done back then. To put a film camera, even the smallest one, if you get too small, it only runs for like 2 minutes. So, so we needed to last and do some scenes up there because the actors had to go up there with their clipboard and they know their notes and they're in charge of running the cameras. And it's a fixed focus and fixed stop and everything just kind of runs like that. So those were kind of a little bit of challenges that was to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's exciting the way that digital cameras nowadays can allow for different opportunities for filming that were,
Yeah.
a little bit more difficult when the original was filmed. Not that that wasn't also very technically impressive. That's
Yeah.
just kind of part of
But,
the
everything
Top
evolves. Like,
Gun. Yeah.
this movie's gonna have, whatever in 10 years, something's gonna be happening different with technology. So, you know what I mean? So, and it's okay.
Right. Yeah, no, that's always the case. And it's the artistry that really remains and makes something,
Right.
last through time. And there's that as well as the technical expertise in this movie. And that's why it, really resonates with people as much as it does.
It really does. I've been around some people, and there's one guy just came up to me. I seen it 32 times. I go like, well, that might be a little bit much, but okay. But most people seem to see it like 5 times at least. I mean, that seems to be the common number. And it was interesting. I was on a plane with Joe coming from Paris, and I remember looking. I said, Joe, just stand up and look. And he was looking at all the seats, and all the backs were almost, I think 80% or like 70 to 80% was all playing Top Gun. I said, doesn't that feel just slightly weird to you right now?
that's got to be a pretty cool situation to be on a plane and everyone's watching your work. I'll be on a
Yeah,
very,
no, I
very
was just
small
like
screen,
everyone.
but
Like,
yeah.
I mean, not in the best quality, yes, but they're in a plane, so maybe it's somewhat simulation.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so much detail and production, like pre-production work that had to go into this to really pull everything off. Like, what is your perspective on working on a film like this versus something that doesn't have all of the technical aspects that also are going into it? I mean, do you kind of approach it in the same sort of way?
Yeah, I mean, Top Gun, I needed, to be on as early as possible, and some movies are a little different. Like I did a smaller movie called Nayat, and you know, I do some early of my own prep, but it's a lot smaller, and Joe and I have done smaller movies. We did a movie called Only the Brave that was, you know, smaller prep, more, didn't have any camera problems or cockpit to figure out. It was just a lot of, firemen, climbing up, doing their job, doing their job. So was a different movie, a lot of hiking. So, these are just different. It's just different,
Yeah, no, everything brings its own challenges, and these are, very particular when it comes to Top Gun. And I think everyone really wants to hear about those and talk about them, simply because it's very exciting to think about a camera being mounted on these jets going that fast and everything. But as much as it's this action movie, it's also this romance in a way too. And I think there's a good balance. Yeah,
Right.
is there a challenge to trying to balance those elements of action and romance when on set?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, when we're doing all the action there, we had two planes going up in the sky. There's mountain units, and there's, and then you have all this massive amount of crews in different places, and you have helicopters and jets and everything, and jet to jet and more jets with the other jets. And it's like a ton of people. And then all of a sudden the whole volume gets turned down for just a beach scene between two people. It's kind of how Top Gun kind of works, to like just explosive to this little tiny kind of little insular scene, which I think is kind of great for me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that, like, you've already spoken about this film, and other people have, to American Cinematographer. Is there anything that you haven't necessarily spoken a ton about that you'd like to share with people?
We have our jobs is kind of crazy, right? We're just in we find ourselves in life, and just I find myself bunking with Lewis Pullman, on an aircraft carrier for 2 weeks, and living that life and being in someone else's world for a while. And I think that's kind of a great part about this job, is that we're able to, you know, be in places where I never thought I would be. I never thought I would be on an aircraft carrier bunking with someone, at over 50, It's interesting to have a roommate again. So,
Yeah.
but other than, like, the technical things, I mean, Top Gun, I've talked a lot about, the cameras and the aircraft, and, their willingness to turn the aircraft carrier for me, and position it for lights. And that's also awesome that, I do a close up on one side, and it's backlit, because Top Gun is a backlit movie. And then we go over to the other side, and then we're spinning the whole boat around, and then we do the other side. And the Navy's willingness to help us in all these situations is just, we got so much access. I mean, I'm I'm telling him where to turn this freaking massive boat, and that's kind of incredible. And there's a lot of great, kind of high energy scenes too, like the sailing scene. We that was our third attempt of trying to do that, and basically we wanted wind and strength, and like to make this feel exciting. And a couple times we went out there where there was no wind. We're just me and Tom were like just off the edge, just bubbling along, and they said, doesn't feel like Top Gun, And then we went up to San Francisco, and it was just like wind. And I think we blew a spinnaker on one of the things. We had so much wind, and that made it exciting. I don't know. I love that, that Top Gun is, responsible to bring people back to movies again. I feel like, that kind of pulls a good string with me, that, people are getting off there, watching, your best work on a phone. That seems super sad sometimes. People are just putting in, and maybe just listening to the speakers just on the phone, and it's, there's so much work, and it's being presented in the tiny thing, that people are actually wanting to see this movie big and with big sound. And I think that's, I don't know. I have more heartstrings are more on that presentation than this one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a very different experience to see Top Gun on a 30 feet screen versus a 3-inch screen.
Yeah,
And,
those
and
little
I,
tiny planes going around.
right.
And also,
Yeah.
theaters is not necessarily just by yourself. You're with a group of people that are also getting excited, and that kind of brings the energy up. So sometimes the theater is not just about, being solo in a room with a big screen. It could be, you just have the whole environment and the excitement of everybody going, being, whoa, and all that stuff. And I think that's also, that creates your own excitement of the group mentality.
I agree. I have movies that I remember when I saw them in theaters because everyone was gasping at the same time,
Right.
it's a very special experience, and this movie really, it's suited to that kind of experience for sure.
Yeah.
So what's it like getting nominated for an ASC award for your work on this?
It's good. It's it's all my, it's all of my peers, so it's all people I've worked with, and I think it's great,
Looking at this year's nominees, are there, any other nominated films or shows that just really inspired you creatively this year that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I mean, I think Greg Fraser did an awesome job on Batman. I think that was freaking incredible, I like, I mean, Deakins is always great, Empire of Light, I think is a beautiful film. All Quiet on the Western Front is beautiful. Mandy did an amazing job on Elvis. You look at all those movies and all the challenges they had to face, like Mandy doing Period, and I think she did amazing work there. All Quiet is a small budget movie feeling like a really big movie, and I kind of admire how they had to work on that. Greg Fraser, it was interesting. I look at it and sometimes I feel like that was like one of the first movies I worked on. It feels like it has that kind of a great earthy feeling. It kind of gets out of a dirty, gritty feeling that I kind of like about it. They all have their own point of view, and Tarda had a great sense of, I mean, they all have like there's things I love about them, and all in different ways. And it's kind of great that they're different. They're all different styles of movies. So